Hello patrons, it is Tuesday, January 23rd. Here it is. Here it is. Your Cup of Jones. Good morning, everybody. I hope Jones can tell us about the meeting. We'll talk about the meeting today. What's up, everybody? Good morning. Apparently a God of War trailer just dropped that I got to check out. Apparently we know when God of War is coming out, so we can add that to the hype calendar of 2018. I'm sleepy. I had a crazy week. We did Game of the Year last year. We played the games last year, and we had a big meeting last Thursday, and it was my birthday on Saturday. So it was a long week, long weekend, and I'm dribbling on myself. And, you know, we got our group stream tonight. Looks like Nidhogg 2 is going to sneak in for the win. I see a lot of people requesting Rock Band. I don't know if we still have our Rock Band equipment. We might have to go out. That might be a bit of an expense to actually do a Rock Band stream. But everything looks like it looks okay. Yeah, I got a haircut. Sporting the Reed Richards. I think once I get to 41, I'm 39 now. Just turned 39 this weekend. I think when I get to 41, I'm full gray. I'm Steve Martin. I'm Anderson Cooper. So enjoy it while it lasts. You can kind of see a little brown in there, but it's going. Yeah, we're short. I usually don't like my haircut that short, but it's fun. Whenever I come out, I'm like, ooh, a little shorter than I thought. Sometimes it can stick out in weird places. So, and as you can see, I got the desk set up behind me. There's lots of mics. I got the desk set up behind me, and I wanted to be on the couch. The couch was set up, but we're going to be shooting at least an Easy Update episode today. An addendum in addition. I don't know if it's going to be an episode on its own. We're shooting some stuff later today before we get to the group stream, and so that's why the desk is up. And I'm like, I missed the couch, and the couch was all set up, so I'm like, I think I'll be a little bit closer. But it means I'm right underneath these lights. And so if you take the bags that are already under my eyes and add them to the lights, which are pointing down directly from above, it's not, I'm either have a blown out forehead or just bags under my eyes. Sounds a little weird. Is the right mic selected? Oh dear. Yeah, it was selected beforehand. Yeah, that's the right mic. Hello. And it should be selected on the mixer. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to hear me if it wasn't selected correctly on the mixer. I'll double check though. Talk amongst yourselves. It should be. Yeah, it's those mics. Sounds a little weird. Well, apologies. Right mic for sure. Okay, alright. Okay, alright. But thanks for checking in, Blood. I'm guessing that's Blood. As Easy Allies in YouTube chat. As always, thank you for, swimming over to patreon.com/EasyAllies, looking for this link, coming back over here for YouTube, and joining me on the third, I believe, Cup of Jones, third or fourth Cup of Jones of 2018. We had a meeting last week. There's a lot of stuff that we're going to get into, some fun announcements to make over the next couple months. But three things I want to bring up that we talked about. One that you might be seeing already some examples of, and that's... and this was a concern expressed very eloquently and passionately by Ben Moore. It was a topic that he wanted to bring up, and something that was very important to him, as evidenced by him already creating Don't Skip, and looking for avenues that will allow us to produce coverage for games that have recently launched. Something shorter than a stream, but not as complex as a preview, and especially for something that's not a preview because it's a game that's already come out. You know, it's a game that's been released, but something we might not necessarily have time to review, something that just doesn't work into our stream schedule, or like I said, you don't always have 2 hours to watch a stream to figure out if you're really into a game. So we have a couple ideas there. One being doing more short format, hands-on type videos. Some of the allies seemed more interested in doing that. Not doing a stream, but just writing a cut down, similar to a preview, but more of a this game is out, we got our hands on it, are not planning to review it, might not finish this game, but we've played enough of it to be able to recommend it to you, or at least explain to you what it's all about. And the other idea, which Kyle Bossman has already experimented with, is to do a long-form stream of a new game, and then after that stream is done, cut that stream down to just the essential bits, and then releasing that on the channel. So that's something that we want to experiment with in the future, because it sucks to not cover games. It sucks that a lot of games come out, and we don't get a chance to cover them. Lots of opportunities for expenses, things that we can spend money on in 2018. Obviously things that we know we're going to be spending money on, the meet and greet coming up, our second anniversary, putting on a show for everybody. But long term, when we looked at everything, I think we decided that we would like specifically a new camera. I think more than anything else, that's something that we talked about. I'm looking up there. I don't know why. The camera's right there. But there's something we talked about in 2017, something that we still feel in 2018. It's time to go big or go home. Not, calm down, not to get like the biggest, craziest camera you've ever seen, but just to make slow incremental upgrades and spend a little bit more on a camera every single time we consider getting a new one. And so we're definitely upping the budget on that. I don't like that you can't see our faces on our podcasts, so we're going to explore microphones that have the filters, the pop filters built in, so there's just not taking up so much space and blocking our beautiful faces. And we love the new lights that we just put in, these two gigantic blasters that are eating away at my retinas right now, and why not have a third? But we did plug in the lights in the back, and it did blow out the power here in the garage, so there's always that question of, if we buy something and plug it in, will it actually work? Will we just have to plug it into the house? Maybe I'll sneak into the neighbor's house and plug it into one of their outlets. And finally, more of a streamline across all of our streams, a streamline, if you will, as far as graphics are concerned, mortises are concerned, not only for our group streams and stuff like Hall of Greats, and obviously there's a lot we can talk about with Game of the Year, which we will get to because a lot of people specifically ask questions about that, but there are some of us that are more visually inclined. Daniel Bloodworth can make himself a mean mortis. I like to tinker around with the concept for streams that I've done, Bruce vs. Batman, Red Dead Revisited, and it's just time to not look at that as a individual flair, that some of us have a more artful approach to the visuals of our streams than others, and just kind of make sure that everybody looks good. And that we're utilizing a lot of the cool tech that's out there. I think there are other channels that we watch streams of, and there's just visually a lot more going on, a lot more feedback with the community, a lot more fun update information stuff that we can add to the mortises that we use. So, sorry, yeah, mortis is like a mortis is a faceplate for a live stream. Yeah, it's just the thing you're looking at, the graphics, where the video is located, where the gameplay is located, what information you're seeing. And I think that's something also that's improved gradually as we've kept going as Easy Allies. But there's so many things to do. When we have a meeting like this, it's not always like, oh, how do we improve ourselves? We have no idea. It's like, we have a list of 200 ways we could do it, all sorts of things we could spend money on, but obviously we can't do everything. And so what's the priority? And so there's many, many things, I would say 20 to 30 action items that we're working on right now. Some of that stuff we don't want to announce just yet, and some of that stuff is going to take a little while, but those three jumped off the page for me as far as things that I think you might find interesting. Specifically that camera, looking forward to getting that. So we're shopping around right now, looking at weighing prices here and there, because we have a lot of big expenses coming up, so we want to be careful about them. And save the date if you haven't already. We're going to mention this on the group stream tonight. Blast this out for everybody. Sunday, March 18th is the official day. We're still locking down a venue that is school-related. Is at one of the fantastic institutions of higher learning here in here on the west coast of California, and so it's taking a long time to get through professors and some people that manage that space to finally book it, actually put the stamp down there that we are going to be at that event. But we have a couple venues that we've been talking to. All of them are confirmed for Sunday, March 18th, so we know that that date is available. So Sunday, March 18th, put that in your calendar. There will possibly be other events around that, maybe the day before, the day after, but we'll have more details. But I knew some people that at least needed like a 5-day window, and it'll definitely be that weekend before, on the evening of that Sunday, March 18th, which is right before our 2nd anniversary. So it's tricky. I think we're going to try a different method next year, which also has its also has a major downside, and that is getting this information out there before the end of 2018 for our 3-year anniversary, should we hopefully get there. And the earlier you announce it, the more you potentially butt up against other events. We have holidays that weekend. We have GDC the following weekend, technically starting that Monday, the day after. And so it's a bad time for everybody the longer you wait. I'm sorry, the earlier you are, you can potentially announce that at a time that doesn't work for other people. But the later you wait, the more difficult you make it for people, the higher ticket prices go for planes and whatnot, and hotels. And so you can't make everybody happy. So I think we'll try the early method next year, and that might mean that you might not get to go, not because, you didn't get the scheduling information early enough, but because something happened, some big event happened that we did not foresee. So it seems like we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't, but we need to get to that date, so pencil that puppy in if you have not already. And we're going to talk about our Goaty stream, which we did last week. We liked it. We have a lot more lessons to learn there and stuff that we can apply next year, and I think that's just an evolving process, so I like coming out of something being overall happy with what we did, but Staples Center, yeah. Be happy with what we did, but at the same time, you think, going to bed being like, oh, wait, write that one down. That's something better we can do next year. And as I mentioned before, I'm a little sleepy. I have a little more energy right now than we started, but if I'm a little short on some of these questions, that's why. Apologies. It's the cost of doing this every week. Sometimes I'm just going to be like, Cubby Jones, what's up? Tony Knox asks, how's that whole anniversary meetup timeline going? Do we have a definitive span of time yet? Specifically like a 5-7 day window? And is Disneyland happening? I don't mean to rush much, but I'm eagerly awaiting some solid info. There's some solid info for you, Tony Knox. And Disneyland? Maybe. We are not going to be down close to Disneyland, but we might make that happen. Maybe the day before. I don't know if St. Patrick's Day is a big day for Disneyland, but I'll figure that out. But like I said, if there's gonna be other events, it will likely be the day before or the day after. Yeah, driving all the way down. I think I did that last year. I've just done Disneyland a lot with allies recently. But maybe make it a thing. Ulf himself, will there be an anniversary mega stream this year too? We will definitely be doing a stream. I think we'll have an extended stream that Tuesday. It will be the day before our anniversary, so I think we will celebrate it the day before. Not do a traditional group stream, but do an anniversary mega stream. One of the things that we talked about at the meeting this year was maybe possibly redefining the word mega. Thinking that, whenever we do big streams like that, charity streams and the like, they don't necessarily need to be 12 hours. Maybe they can be 8 hours or 6 hours. So by mega, that might just be a 4-hour stream, 6-hour stream, we'll see. Andrew left, living in California, I'm sure you cross paths with a bunch of celebrities. How do you handle seeing a celebrity that you were a huge fan of? Do you approach them for a picture signature? Do you shout their name from afar? Or do you let them be? Bonus question, how would you prefer a fan of Easy Allies to approach you in public if a fan happens to see you? I have crossed paths with a bunch of celebrities. The airport is actually probably the one place I've seen celebrities the most. Whether I approach, I usually don't go for a picture or a signature. If I can get a handshake and just let somebody know that I like their work, that's fun. Sometimes I'll be at events where pictures are good, but even like some YouTubers that I met at Comic-Con. Comic-Con last year was the big year that I think I just kept bouncing from like one celebrity to another. As far as opportunities to be like, there's that person, should I stop them and talk to them? I think the big thing is, if I'm at Comic-Con at a party, no reason not to go up and introduce yourself. I don't care who you are. Like, if you're a celebrity and you go to a party, like, people are going to come up, and if they can get into that party, they're going to come up and say hi to you. But if I'm at the airport, if I'm getting a sandwich, if I'm like at Ralph's and I see, oh, look, there's Chrissy Teigen, like, okay, I'm not going to, bother her. But if I'm at a party, if I'm at an event, if I'm at a con, I will definitely stop somebody. It's funny, too, because I definitely have celebrity people that, in the gaming industry, people, my colleagues, people that are journalists that I just never got a chance to meet, and have kind of been blown up. I remember when I met Dan Reichert at Giant Bomb for the first time. I went and visited Giant Bomb, and I'm just like, I never actually had a chance. And I think he was playing Stardew Valley for the first time. And I came over like, hello, Mr. Reichert. This Dan's a big deal. But my recommendation, we talked about this before, because I right after Comic-Con, I think, I went up to Davos Seaworth from, Davos, that's what he meant. Yeah. I think it was Alec Church or somebody said, I think the Davos the story is coming after this comment. But yeah, Davos from Game of Thrones. God, I wish I could remember the actor's name. And the key is, you got to make sure to have an out. Because I think the big problem is not to people come up and say something, because there's no, like, good thing to say. You just don't know that person. You don't know their personality. You're not friends with them. And so there's no, like, winning first line you're going to have. You're just going to want to go up and say hi. Maybe if you're not 100% sure it's them, confirm, like, hi, are you in Game of Thrones? Are you, do you play Davos Seaworth? And once you get the confirmation, just a quick Liam Cunningham, just a quick one sentence, hey, I like your work. Hey, I think you're great. Hey, I think you're really funny. My line for Liam is, I said, you're my favorite on the show. I said, I'm pulling for you. And he said, so am I. And then I walked away. And so the key is that out. Knowing like, all right, I'm not going to start a conversation with you. I'm just going to tell you one thing and then I'm gone. I think those are the really uncomfortable situations. Not like, someone's talking to me, because celebrities are used to that. It's the, you're not going away, are you? Like, I'm going to have to, like, if I have a friend coming up, I got to introduce you to that friend too. And so you just want to make sure to have your out ready to go. For me, if I'm at a con, say hi. Unless I have like a camera in my face with the light on and a mic. If I'm holding a mic and staring into a camera, don't say hi. But if I'm standing somewhere, if I'm waiting for something and not talking to somebody, go for it. Like, that's the perfect time. If I'm en route, if I have like a jog and it's at E3 and I'm like going from one hall to the other, maybe just yell Brandon or Easy Allies and I'll wave, but like, I gotta go. If I'm like moving fast. But if I'm just strolling, grab me. So, how would you prefer a fan of Easy Allies to approach you in public? Yeah, just yell my first name, and I usually swing around and wave at that, or just say Easy Allies, and I'll be like, yeah. I don't hear Easy Allies spoken that loud in public, so, and Easy Allies will usually turn my head. But I'd say most of the time, I get messages from people who are like, this was the instance, I saw you doing this thing, it's probably okay to go talk to me. It's just again, like the camera is something somebody's got to cut out. And as an editor, I never want to ask an editor to do that. Raymond Chow. Oh, asks the same question. I hope this isn't a weird question, but what's the best way to approach you at a meetup? Raymond's uncomfortable even asking how not to be uncomfortable when asking questions. I went to the PSX meetup, but I struggled to find a way to get in the groups, as every ally was busy with their own group and having a great time. It may be overthinking. It is, unfortunately, Raymond, but I understand where you're coming from. But I just didn't want to step on anyone's toes while they were talking to you. How would you suggest to approach you or any ally at a meetup? Specifically at a meetup, if you want to talk to someone, walk up and like get in that group. That was actually one thing that I was very good at, I feel, or I've been better at meetups. And again, this format isn't going to work if we get to a point where we have double the people that show up to the meetups when we have them. Then we're definitely going to have to streamline this at some point. But at the point, you know, as of right now, it's nice and cozy just to be hanging out and chatting about stuff. And when people would come up and kind of add themselves to a group, I would spot them. I could be like, okay, somebody just came up to the group that I think wants to talk to me. And so that's on me to tell the person talking, like, okay, stop for 2 seconds and then let me meet this person. But it's not perfect, and it's kind of like the Wild West at meetups, but we do that because I think we're at a comfortable enough size that we don't want to like have people line up and meet us one by one. But I understand where you're coming from. It can feel uncomfortable, but I just have to say at those meetups, I struggle to think of a moment where some ally would be upset that like, hey, I was talking to Ben, or, you know, Kyle wouldn't, you know, see you and know, okay, hold on a second, let's bring this new person into the conversation. It's interesting because sometimes I have people come up that are like, hey, listening to the conversation, and I'm like, hey, what's up, Brandon? And they're like, oh, you know, hi, nice to meet you. I'm just, you know, didn't want to say anything to you, I'm just hanging out. So you never know. The hashtagonist. Why is Easy A casually leaving money on the table? Here we go. During our last meeting, you mentioned that the previously highly popular show, The Final Bossman, is something that you bring up with Kyle every now and then, but so far has not been made a reality. Now, of course, you cannot force people into creativity, but as a company, how is I don't feel like it right now a viable excuse to not grow your revenue? Question mark. As Kyle mentioned during Easy Allies Live, he probably could have started a Patreon on his own based on The Final Bossman. As a fake shareholder, I feel you are not doing your fiduciary duty. If the carrot approach doesn't work, maybe it's time for the stick. Oh boy, it's only, you know, lovable felines like the hashtagonist that can get away with talking about possibly beating Kyle Bossman with a stick. There's a lot of things. It's not, I don't feel like it right now. I mean, I don't feel like it right now is a part of Easy Allies. I mean, you don't know how to feel like doing, I don't feel like doing countdowns. I mean, we just don't feel like doing it. Like, we could do it. We could deliver a bad countdown. We could do something that would make us all very, you know, cranky and tired, overworked, that would not be as good, that would, you know, not be as fluid, as creative, that would not fit in as comfortably into the schedule. It's not like the countdowns are impossible. We just don't want to do them. You know, we want to keep this as an enjoyable thing. We want this to come when group streams come up. We're all just like, oh god, group streams. We were talking about that actually at the meeting, that like we plan too many things for Tuesday shoots, where we're just shooting one thing back to back to back. By the time we get to the group stream, we're beat. And we debated, we just shot the podcast before the group stream last time, and it's like, what's better to be more tired for, the podcast or the or the group stream. I think we're going to stay to the schedule, but Hashtagonist, to be honest, if this is a investors meeting, we're talking about value. Something that I place a tremendous amount of value on, and is something that has caused me from not breaking the stick out that often, is morale. I think morale is way more important here at Easy Allies than it was at GT. That was definitely one of my first priorities moving in as editor-in-chief, you know, where I did not have that position before, and so all of a sudden I came in and I'm thinking, okay, I'm now running this ship. What are my assets? What if this sinks ships? What am I grabbing? And yeah, Final Bossman is an asset, and that's important, but is it so important that, you know, is it important to implement Final Bossman that have that take away from the podcast, have that take away from Boxpeak, have that take away from the Hall of Greats, have that, you know, take away from Dumb Game Monday, like all these other things that Kyle has brought to Easy Allies, all these things that Kyle is doing now that we were not doing before at Game Trailers, we were not doing before at Viacom or Defy, that were an example of, okay, we're all getting together and that's cool, but we're starting this new thing, and so let's bring in new ideas. Kyle is fantastic at those new ideas. Kyle was instrumental in getting amateur Gundam building off the ground, and so I think it's not only a time sink, it's not only a creative sink, it's just kind of like a mind sink and an energy sink. And it doesn't mean it's not great, it doesn't mean it's not what people want, but when we had the meeting last Thursday, it wasn't like, all right, we need this, let's do it. It was like, hey, this could be important, do we care? And, you know, sometimes like, yeah, we care, let's create a show around that. Or like, no, none of us feel like doing that. So like, okay, I'm not gonna make all of you do that because I don't think that's what's made Easy Allies successful so far. I think I keep hearing consistently back from people that they're like, I enjoy watching you because I enjoy watching all of you enjoy what you're doing. And so I don't want to break out the stick, I want to break out the stick and make sure people show up on time. I want to break out the stick and make sure people commit to deadlines. I want to, including myself, I want to break out the stick and make sure people say they're going to do what they're going to do. But if somebody says, I don't want to do that, and I'm like, okay, and they stick to their guns, I'm not gonna stick them to like make them do something. But I mean, to continue the conversation, let's go right into Chris Gorgaris. The Final Bossman was the first show I discovered on GT years ago, and is part of what got me hooked on all the rest of the Allies. I was let down when Kyle decided not to continue his show. I know and understand the reasons, but I think you were underestimating the effect that bringing his show back would have. I'm not. I get it. From our position, you know, looking at retros and Game Sleuth and some of like the bigger things that we do, you know, huge reviews like the, you know, Breath of the Wild, Odyssey, like reviews that people have been waiting for a long time. They are not underestimated, I assure you. I'm sure a lot of the Allies would raise their pledges at the prospect of getting a weekly installment from Kyle back, and I'm willing. It would put you very close to your studio goal finally. Perhaps a poll on the main Patreon to see what the interest is. It would win. It would be huge interest, and it wouldn't change Kyle's mind. I think you'd be surprised. I wouldn't. Maybe I would. I don't know. But it's like, I wouldn't put a poll up on Patreon asking people if they wanted the Final Bossman to return and be like, yeah, what is it going to be, 50-50? Like, it'll be huge. It'll be the majority of people that are our patrons, so. And despite us saying that was not something that we were going to do, I'm sure a lot of people came to Patreon with that expectation. Like, I'm going to put $5 in the pot now. I bet it's coming back. Sorry to disappoint. I want these Allies to speak from their heart. I want them to work on things. I'll tell you this, I would much, at this point, if I could choose between a pilot episode of the Final Bossman Easy Allies version and Boxpeak, I want Boxpeak. I've read all of the Uh-oh. TV won't turn on. Lost power. I love how we're getting new lights, new camera, and all this stuff. The power's going out. All right, might have to hustle if we want to get through all this stuff. But yeah, we talked about Final Bossman a lot. I don't think everybody looks okay. Is that okay? All right. Yeah, sorry if that writes over the beginning of Cup of Jones. Apologies if this is the beginning of Cup of Jones for you, and you missed the first part. But yeah, sorry that we don't do Final Bossman. Sorry we're not doing a lot of things. Final Bossman was never even brought up during our meeting, just to give you the update on where we stand with the Final Bossman conversation. Dennis Mullert, can you enable the DVR function on YouTube for the Cup of Jones live streams? It is enabled this week, so let me know if that works for you. Or Blood, let me know if that messes anything up. Cup of Blood, I would love a Cup of Blood. Clip that one out, put it at the end of the podcast. I was tuned in too late and have to wait till the show's over to watch it from the beginning. So DVR would let you go back while we are streaming and watch it as it goes along. Brandon K. Gann, I'm writing this shortly after you finish today's episode and before tonight's GOTY deliberations. With that said, how do you and the other allies feel those deliberations went? Favorite parts? Things you'd like to see and improve in some way? Sure, I'll give you the quick version. I thought the GOTYs went well. I think it was more streamlined than last year. I think the production values in general were just better than what we did in 2016. But I think there were still lessons. There's still ways we could more organize the conversation. I think by the time we got to picking the nominees for Game of the Year and specifically the Game of the Year discussion, things kind of fell apart. Some people were a little confused about like our less serious categories, and so maybe there's a different way that we can frame those. But specifically the omission of the 10 nominees down to the 4-3-2 games we ended up debating over before we actually picked our Game of the Year. I think that process could be cleaned up going into next year based on what we did this year. So it'd be fun going back and watching that and making 2018 GOTYs even better. But a lot of people asked about GOTYs. Anthony O. Cohen, how do you feel the live GOTY Awards went? Were there any games you felt was a sure lock that lost? The most shocking moment for me in the GOTYs was when Damiani dropped Super Mario Odyssey in the interest of voting for Zelda to try to beat out Persona 5 for Game of the Year. That blew my mind. Not to do GOTY spoilers in case you haven't seen the video, but yeah, I thought it was going to be Odyssey and Zelda and Persona 5, and the Odyssey lovers jumped aboard the Zelda ship. Any long shots you were secretly hoping for that won? Probably What Remains of Edith Finch for best game to finish in one night. I really wanted that to get some recognition. I was happy that it did. And Vici Junkie, finally, with GOTY deliberations now behind you, did you or any other allies have any plans for what you change or do differently for 2018's version? I've kind of answered that. What went particularly well and what do you think could have been better? Are you guys still down to give it another go after this? Yeah, we love the live. We think that worked out really well. Obviously, it's probably most important to make sure fans thought that went well, and I think we got a lot of thumbs up from that stream. So. It's important to. It's kind of an interesting mix. It's has the flavor of how we used to do GOTYs at Game Trailers, but it also has this conversational nature that Easy Allies has more than traditionally what we did at GT. Morgan Mohala, any chance for an audio version or SoundCloud upload of the Game of the Year deliberations? It's just a bit too long for watching on YouTube or converting on the web. I really want to hear the discussion on 2017's best. That's just a big. It's a big file. It's a 7.5-hour file. So yeah, it's just not something that we commonly do because it's just a big file to hassle. So that's why we didn't do it. But if we get lots of complaints about that, maybe that's something that we can prep and have time for next year. But not something you should expect from this year. Apologies. Just boot that baby up on YouTube and put it on the background. James Vest, I remembered your most wanted question about your favorite president, and I thought of a question based on that. What video game character do you think would make the best president of the United States? What video game character? I didn't really give this a lot of thought before. Jokingly, I want to pick the G-Man, but I'm trying to think of like a popular Kratos. Like, nobody would say no to Kratos. Like, nobody... Like, how could you resist Kratos if Kratos deemed his will? It's like, I'm doing this with healthcare. Yeah, Kratos is my answer. I don't know. I'm tired. Yeah, James, I could give you a non-tired answer, but it's not coming this morning. Kyle Lee, there are some other podcasts that I follow closely that have a special Patreon tier that includes an exclusive shirt for anyone that pledges that amount. I'm familiar with those. I don't know what show specifically you're talking about. I'm very familiar with that practice. I've long idolized the Mega 64 shirts. This could be a fun way to make shirts of specific bits that have come up over a month without the worry of, will this design actually sell? It could be a fun way to engage people and make something unique to patrons, similar to the limited release of the anniversary shirt. I know this is something that we'll probably have to wait until a shirt distributor has been found, but I thought I'd throw it out there. Fun idea. Exclusive, yeah. Patreon tier exclusive shirts. Let me put that on. Pardon me. It's on a whole separate page now. It's on its own page. The takeaways. There we go. Patreon exclusive shirt. We got some fun merch stuff to announce soon. Some fun merch things we've been working on that I'm happy about. Again, because we're Easy Allies, it's not going to be like 10,000 pieces of merch. It'll just be like, you know, a couple fun things. Kyle Lee, yeah, there we go. Mikhail Hervel Nemo, the Brandon Jones lore is building. What is the best song? The best song. I'm not a big music person. My favorite, I'll just say my favorite song, or one of my favorite songs, is A Day in the Life by the Beatles. Because the Beatles, woo, the Beatles are a big deal. And I really like Day in the Life because to a lot of people, the Beatles are everybody. You know, they're George and Ringo as much as John and Paul. But to me, a lot of the Beatles is John and Paul, is that interesting relationship. And I've had lots of creative relationships. And I think at one point, if any of you were a creative professional, whether you're an actor or writer or musician or whatever, you've had some relationship to someone likely that you've compared to either John and Paul or some other, you know, Crosby and Still and Nash or whatever, like some creative relationship that you idolize or that you look up to or that you're familiar with. And so that was a legendary pairing, and there were lots of things that John and Paul loved about each other and a lot of reasons that they were frustrated and, you know, had to break up that band. And to me, Day in the Life is just so fascinating because it's like these different approaches to songwriting. You know, it's kind of like, you know, John and Paul wrote, I actually do not know the writing credits on that song. They might have just written it together, but to have their styles not combating, just living together in the same song, I really dig that. But if there's a best song, the Beatles probably wrote it. Mikhail Hervel Nemo, I thought about in Hall of Greats, the third spot has been inducted twice now, Street Fighter II and Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Why not just put the third most voted game on immediately, as to avoid repetition? I know you're probably not the one making the rules for Hall of Greats, but I was thinking you might discuss it with the allies. Last Hall of Greats, third place was tied at 7, so maybe if only the third place game gets 9 votes or more, it gets in? I don't know. I think it would make the streams more fun if we could avoid the salty runbacks. Oof. Salty runbacks are they're pretty good, pretty essential for the Hall of Greats there. Things get a little bit salty. I will say this: I will always take any and all Hall of Greats considerations, and we will debate them before we do every Hall of Greats. We like to change it up and not always do it the same exact way. Learn from the previous Hall of Greats to make the next Hall of Greats induction ceremony better than ever. I will say this though, we're not in a hurry. I don't want to rush and get like a lot of things in the Hall of Greats. I like taking our time because I think we'll get to a point where there's like 20, 30 games in the Hall of Greats, and so it's like, okay, now we really got to get it. Like that's the Hall of Greats deliberations I'm looking forward to, where Don can bring up, you know, a Jurassic Park, you know, RTS or world or theme park builder, and like it's a contender because we're all bringing really weird games. Like, you know, one's like Legacy of Kain over here, and like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 over here, and like, see, I'm trying to bring up Tony Hawk more. I think that's when it'll be great. So again, I'm just not in a hurry, but you know, bring it in 3 maybe. Maybe we get. It's like you were saying. Maybe we can think of an exception for when that happens. So you can maybe potentially be looking forward to that. Alex Yunker, what do you think of Disney Lucasfilm's handling of the Solo movie? The Han Solo film called Solo, A Star Wars Story. It concerns me that we haven't seen anything for it except for the poster synopsis, and it releases in May. The handling of Solo is leading me to have concerns about the potential Kenobi movie. Yeah, I'm more excited about that Kenobi movie than I am about Solo, even though it's just pure speculation at this point. Like, I can't remember what movie he was just in, but Ewan McGregor wore a beard to some premiere, and everybody's like, "You got a beard on?" He's like, "Look, I haven't had meetings with anybody. I'd love to make that movie. That'd be fun, but no one's talking to me." But who knows? It seems like Disney's making these decisions pretty quickly at the last minute. So yeah, to catch you up, Ron Howard is now directing the Solo film, which was previously going to be directed by the two gentlemen that directed the Lego film. I'm not familiar. I'm bad with directors, especially like young new directors. I'm bad as far as like connecting who worked on what. But there's lots of moving around, lots of shuffling. I think almost every Star Wars project we've gotten since Disney took over had some sort of controversy with it. Something that we found out beforehand, like, ooh, you're doing that, or that actor's in it, or ooh, you know, Hamill said he didn't like the portrayal of Luke in Episode 8, and like there was they had to do reshoots on Rogue One. That made me super nervous. But I'm trying to think of something that Disney did that we didn't find out until the last minute, and it turned out to be pretty cool. I'm not. Yeah, I didn't like. I don't think we got a Breath of the Wild really good trailer until very late in that campaign, and that made me super nervous because they were just advertising it very differently than they had other things. I saw somebody tweet out that we had gotten. There was like over a year before we got like the first trailer for all of the latest Star Wars films, and again, this film's about 5 months out, and we don't have anything. And I don't think. I think you can have like a really big lead on some movies sometimes. I think Solo just doesn't have that big of a lead right now. I think they are kind of bringing it down to the wire. It's kind of a all the money in the world situation where they like had to swap out, you know, Christopher Plummer for Christopher Plummer for Kevin Spacey, and then pretend like nothing happened. But they made it happen, and it affected the advertising, I'm sure. They had to like remake all the posters and trailers and stuff. So. It's nerve-wracking, but I don't think it's a guarantee that that movie's going to be bad. My expectations are pretty much in check. If you're just going to ask me personally, I'm really excited to see Glover as Lando, probably more than anything. And I really like that actor. Who's going to play Han Solo, whose name escapes me right now, but I loved him in I, Caesar. Hail Caesar, one of the latest from the Coen brothers. Really good in that. And so one of those roles that was not just a great performance, was a great character performance, so I can definitely see that actor kind of slipping into a character role and being faithful to it. So it could be super bad, but I don't know. I'm not assuming that the Solo film's going to be bad at this point. Joseph LaRussa, you were talking 2 episodes ago about... How are we doing? We still online? Are we not dropping frame? Okay, great. Yeah, we still got my lights, still got power. You were talking 2 episodes ago about some of the allies not being involved as much as others. Ben and Kyle versus Brad and Don was an example you gave. It made me wonder, how do you determine who makes how much money in their salary? Not asking for specifics, of course, but since multiple allies are full-time, I was curious about how much you figured it all out. Do you do it hourly, by average workload, amount of the time it takes, even splits, etc.? Love and respect. P.S. Simple merch request. Love and respect shirt available in EZA colors, please. Right now you only have 2 colors, not 3, and I won't buy it without repping the colors, which I love so much. I love, like, rejecting merch because it doesn't have the right colors. It's a nice shirt. What is that? Oh, it's Easy Allies. This isn't their colors, though. It's different colors. I don't want you looking at the shirt and thinking that when you go and watch Easy Allies videos or streams that these are the colors you're getting, because you're not. The purple, it's not happening. All of us get an even split from our salaries, and then some of the allies get a little bit more on top of that. That more all came up over time. Some of that more has been raised and lowered over the years, and it all comes just from whenever we have a financial meeting with all of us. Someone, sometimes it's me, sometimes it's other allies, will bring up, I think that person should get more, and we'll decide, hey, show of hands, who thinks, who's cool with that, and then that happens. So, without getting into the nitty-gritty there. Ibrahim Sozer, I think you should get Ferris Some Game News some money so he can edit for the Easy Allies Plays channel. I think this comment comes up in every single Cup of Jones. I was thinking one video a month and a best of Easy A Plays about the previous month would be a good ad for Easy A Plays YouTube channel and Twitch. If you don't have the budget, I think you should try to make it maybe when you hit 45K or 50. Yeah, I definitely don't want to put it as a tier. I don't want to make a tier on Patreon that will hire someone because it puts a spotlight on one member of the community specifically, and it I think can frustrate people because they're like, that would be so good for you. It's kind of like a chicken and the egg thing. It's like, well, that'll help promote you, but you can't get into that level on Patreon until you get the promotion. One thing that we talked about are all sorts of different positions of people that we could hire when at the meeting. You know, we're looking at our budget and thinking like, should we buy a camera or should we buy a couple employees? Should we buy an extra editor? Should we buy a community manager? And talking about reviewing what those people really should earn to justify their position compared to what we make and what we are familiar with paying people to do that job in the past. And I'll be honest, there was not a lot of interest at this point, approaching the end of year 2 of Easy Allies, to bring in another employee. For all sorts of reasons that I'm not going to get into because I'm tired, and I think we've talked about it in the past, but I can potentially get into it later. Ryan Bates was confused, or I explained myself wrong. I cannot believe in one episode you managed to describe your dream Star Wars game as some dumb AAA Galaxy of Heroes. Galaxy of Heroes is a turn-based role-playing game. The game that I described, my Jedi third-person combat game, would be more akin to Jedi Outcast, where you'd be jumping and flipping and using force powers and swinging lightsabers. And then immediately besmirch KOTOR. I just talked about my personal experience. KOTOR's top 100 best games of all time, easy. I just didn't like it at the time. I didn't appreciate it at the time because I was not familiar with those types of games. The best Star Wars game ever made. You're a monster. Anyway, how'd that meeting go? It was good. We talked about it. So I think that was said in good. Ryan Bates said that in good fun. Star Wars is touchy. I love that on the podcast there was a love and respect question about how many Star Wars games came out versus how many Gundam games came out. And I was like, oh, Star Wars destroys Gundam. Gundam wipes the floor with Star Wars as far as saturation. Go Gundam. Parasite Paladin, all the entertainment you currently own between books, games, TV shows, and movies, there's bound to be a lot of it. My question is not what is next, but what is last. Say you somehow had the time to get to every single thing you have. At the very end of that road, what would be the very last thing you experience? Let's just talk about games. We got a, this is a games channel. It's a games Patreon. It's a games network. Games YouTube channel. We're here on YouTube. Talking about games. What's like the last game? It would probably be like Warcraft. It would probably be the World of Warcraft. Like all the expansions that I missed, you know? I'd get the Mists of Pandaria on. I would just go back, pick up right where Cataclysm left off, go into Pandaria, which I've never been to. I've never set foot once. I think I've seen videos, of course, but like, and just like, all right, let's do Pandaria, let's do Warlords of Draenor, let's do Legion. Let's get ready for the next one. Not because it's just like every game, but I mean, there is that part of me. There is that small seed. And it's like, wow, that almost immediately gets stomped on. No, wow. Alex AI, since you talked about the craziness of Star Wars lore from KOTOR or the Old Republic in general, I have a question for you. How familiar are you with the different class stories from Star Wars the Old Republic, the MMO? In case you have not seen any of them, I would strongly recommend watching a playthrough of the Imperial Agent story. I also liked the Jedi Consular a lot. I was not an Imperial Agent, and I was not a Jedi Consular. I was a loose cannon. I think I was a smuggler. I don't think I had an allegiance on either side. So, and I did not get to play that to completion. So, that's interesting. I'm curious how long those cutscenes are. It sounds like they're not to just specifically go through the class stories. Might not take that long. So that might be fun just to put that onto the background or speed through that someday. Thank you for the recommendation, Alex. Matt Brookbank, you mentioned thinking Wiimote lightsaber not happening was unfortunate. They made a Star Wars, they made at least one, a Star Wars fighting game on the Wii using motion controls. It was not good. I wonder if you've tried Trials on Tatooine on your Vive. I have many times. Though it's unfortunate, it's just a short thing, it kind of realizes that dream of motion-controlled lightsaber. That would be a great direction to take Star Wars VR. The most entertaining thing to do in Trials on Tatooine, which is a free demo you can download, a short little Star Wars demo, other than watching the Millennium Falcon land and take off right in front of you, it's fun to have Stormtroopers shoot a laser at you, and you can see that laser coming, and you have your lightsaber, and you go bing, and it's fun to like, because like what I would do is just kind of hold it out, you know, like this in front of me and just like twist it back and forth and block that way. But it's fun to like actually see if you can like slice through the air and possibly deflect a lightsaber blast back at the person who shot it at you, which is super fun. Shellburn, is there a reason you didn't mention Marcus Spears' heart attack he suffered a year ago? He's still slowly recovering from it, and last I heard, he didn't have much interest in returning to the forefront of commentary and games. Sadly, I wish him all the best. Yeah, I didn't bring that up specifically. It wasn't part of the question, I guess, just kind of like what I thought of Marcus. Marcus is, like I said, Marcus has had a crazy career. Marcus has jumped around to doing a lot of different things, and so I would never count Marcus out. That was very scary what happened. We were kind of waiting day by day to find out if and how he was going to recover from that. That was very scary for those of you that were not up on that at the time when Marcus unfortunately had a heart attack. Yeah, sorry I didn't bring that up. I just didn't think, it was kind of more of the professional conversation and not just, I mean, I guess people wanted more of an update on what he's doing now, but I never want to speak on behalf of somebody else's health, and certainly what they're interested in doing, you know, with their careers. But I have since chatted privately with Marcus a couple times since this happened, and while I'm sure, you know, he didn't want to go do like the Iron Man challenge that day, he seemed to be in good spirits, and he seemed to be very close to the Marcus that I worked with for so many years and love so dearly. So I think Marcus is well. I just, yeah, I hope Marcus finds something that he's happy doing, because he's certainly done a lot of commentary, a lot of work in the games industry. So never hurts to just kick back, play with his dog, and play RPGs. Tyler Grummett, I want to know how all the allies did in their game trailers interview. If you were present in the interviews, what did they say that won you over? Were their personalities that you know of now evident at the time, or were they revealed at a much later date? I would say the two allies that I was the closest I was closest to the involvement. I was most involved in hiring were Daniel Bloodworth. I specifically remember Shane Satterfield coming over to me and being like, okay, so we have this opportunity, this opening. These are the people that I interviewed. What do you think? And I looked at. I did not interview Daniel Bloodworth. I just saw some information, saw his name, read some of his work, saw where he had worked previously, and was like, I like this Bloodworth fella. It wasn't like, I like this Bloodworth fella, therefore we're hiring him. I just put my eggs in that basket, and then Bloodworth ended up getting hired. So maybe Shane saw what I saw as well, that Bloodworth was a smart man. And thank goodness we have Bloodworth now. Oh my goodness. I also brought in, probably more directly, I brought in Brad Ellis, and brought in Brad basically at the behest of Huber, who, you know, grew up with him and knew him very well. And we had a intern position that wasn't technically called like an intern when we moved over to Defy, but we had lots of interns when we were at Viacom, and he was just the next person on the list, you know, somebody to bring in when we moved over to Defy. I was like, we'd like to have interns if we can, and did not get paid very well when he was at Defy Media, but worked very hard for us, and was somebody that I really like having the relationship between Huber and Brad. So other than just the wonderfulness that Brad brings to everything that he does, it's nice to have that perspective. Everyone else in their interview, I don't know. The Kyle Bossman interview? No idea. I think Hoffman might have interviewed him. Diamond Crusader, could you please say the name of my 2017 Game of the Year, Nier Automata, obviously, in a hyped New Japan Pro Wrestling announcer voice? Give me your best attempt, please. Diamond Crusader, I just want it known. This morning, I spent like 5 to 10 minutes trying to find a New Japan Pro Wrestling announcer, and I couldn't. I heard... is it Jim Rose? Is that the guy from WWF? I heard he just made the jump, that he's going to start working for them. But, so I don't know if I want to give... Is it Jim Nash, Jim Rose? What is it? I'll just give my own wrestling announcer voice. I just don't know if New Japan, they're like, oh, it's a whole different thing. He has a really high squeaky voice. He sounds like Gizmo. Like, I don't know. But, Nier Automata! There we go. That was a tough one. I didn't know for a long time if it was Automata, Automata, Automata. That's the official pronunciation. Jim Ross, not Jim Rose. Sorry, Jim Ross. Alexander Zirianov. I think it's Zirianov, maybe. I always say Ziranov, but I think it might be Zirianov. Can you ask Don to name his personal 2017 GOATys next time he is on the group stream? I would love to hear it, even if it is just one game I've never heard of. Maybe casually we'll bring that up, but again, it's like we talked about with Kyle doing Final Bossman. We were like, hey Don, you want to be a part of GOATys? And Don was like, nope. We're like, alright. So, just don't want to force Don to do something he doesn't want to do. Keon Jerome, you mentioned that you know some Spanish, and teachers have commented on your accent. As someone who is 50% Spanish, I'm assuming, 50%, and speaks it sort of fluently, I'm interested in hearing it. Ugh. Oh boy. Give me something to say. How about that? Let's do it that way, because I just don't want to, like... It's like oh, you do an impersonation of, you know, Jerry Seinfeld? Do it. And you're like, no, I don't want to do it. Because I just need something to say. I just guarantee if I think of like, por supuesto, if I think of something like on top of my head, it's not going to sound good. So if you give me something to say, I'll say that in the best Spanish accent I possibly can. Seb Bailey, let's talk more about Predator. You said you tried to explain how good it was to your mother-in-law. Keen to hear what you think. Brilliant eye acting by Arnold. Best eye actor in the biz. Never thought about that. Arnold is pretty damn good with his eye acting. His eye movement is solid. They never thought about that specifically. Eye acting. Arnold. Predator's great. I love a no-nonsense action movie. We got a lot of those in the 80s and 90s, and they were so satisfying. And then, like, action movies have just gotten so dramatic, and action sequences have just gotten so over the top. And we've just gotten out of this, like, relentless... That's why movies like Dredd are so great. Like, what's another one? The Tower movie where the guy is in Korea, where he's got to, like, run up the tower. The Siege? I forgot what it was called. The Tower Siege? But these movies, they're just relentless. They're just like Battle of Attrition, The Raid, where you're just like, I can't believe that human being survived that. I think Speed was kind of like the beginning of the end, where we started this like new trend of just like really overly dramatic action stuff, which is great. But and Predator's super silly. What is this Thai business? We're just, I'm a sexual Tyrannosaurus. There's a lot of jokiness, but what I love about Predator is Predator seems to me to be in like the 50-yard line between Commando and Aliens. Commando I love. Commando's great. Nothing wrong with Commando. Alyssa Milano is his daughter in Commandos. And then you got Aliens, which I take very seriously. I think there's very few moments in Aliens that you could point at and be like, haha, that was made in the 80s. Like, Aliens I think is a very, very solid action film. Solid script, great acting, really consistent effects. Just awesome music, great sound effects, good scale, like great makeup, just really, really well executed all around. Predator's kind of in the middle because it's got when Predator starts, it's Commando. You know, you go in and the big gallon gun and the big knives and all these buff guys. I ain't got time to bleed. You know, there's just a lot of like, lot of testosterone, a lot of showboatiness, and then it just kind of gets cobbled in the midpoint of the movie, and it's really interesting seeing not only these strong guys, but these strong guys that operate as a unit, that come in, that Schwarzenegger's like, I just bring in my guys and we do this. And the reason he gets pissed is like, don't lie to me. We're fine doing bad stuff, just don't lie to me. Tell me what we're doing and why we're going in there, and let me pick and choose what missions I want to go on based on whether I think it's this, you know, it behooves us, whether it's good, you know, good pay for, you know, the amount of work, or whether it's like a cause that we believe in or something. Yeah, it's like, rescue some hostages, sure, we'll do that. And he gets double-crossed. He gets double-crossed by a friend of his. And so it not only does he kind of get disrupted that way, that like, okay, that sucked that you put us in harm's way, but not only did that suck that you put us in harm's way, we're in the middle of the jungle now, and now we got to get to an extraction point, which is not easy. If you ever hear about the story about how they shot Predator, they shot it in the jungle, so they're bringing all of these, you know, kind of lights and the cameras and sound equipment and all this stuff, dragging it through the forest, shooting this crazy movie. And it's fascinating that, like, this well-knit group, Alien style, Commando style, rolls in, expecting to kick ass. All of them get taken out, spoilers, except for 3. And, like, one moment that I think is really profound is, for an action film, for a Schwarzenegger science fiction action film, is the tree that, like, swipes the guy, takes him out, and his legs don't work, and he's got to be like dragged, you know, to the helicopter. It does not work out for him, unfortunately, I don't think. But he, I can make it, I can make it. You know, like that guy, like it, just really interesting that like they physically have to drag this one guy out. It kind of has like Vietnam vibes, like it, and so it's really interesting seeing like the stuff that Arnold has to go through, why he survives as opposed to everybody else. You have Billy, like this, you know, Native American. Assuming there, apologies if that was a racist statement. I believe he's the guy who plays Billy is Native American, and you know him kind of taking the stand and being like, "I'm going to fight the Predator with this weapon, and I think I can do it." Not realizing, just put your weapon down and you'll make it out of here. Stop fighting him. Stop giving him a target. You know, stop giving him a reason to keep hunting all of you. And it's really cool to see, just almost through like really small lines of dialogue and mostly just visual observation, kind of like what the Predator's doing and how he's fighting and why he keeps winning. And how long it takes for the Predator. I think it's like an hour and 10 minutes before you even see the Predator. And so, long story short, I like how it is a comment on... I think it's kind of a commentary on Commando. I think it's McTiernan making a commentary on a lot of popular Schwarzenegger films where he's just the hero and rolls in and kills everybody and rescues his daughter and gets out. And I like this idea of the reason why you're on this mission is kind of suspect. The threat that you're facing, you don't really have all the answers to. And this area, this makes Cambodia look like Kansas. Like this area you're in, you're not familiar with. And so there's just a lot of great alien stuff about Predator. Thank you, Seb Bailey, for bringing up Predator so we could talk about Predator. Also, what is his name? Ugh, the guy who did the guy who did the to the soundtrack is the same guy who did Back to the Future. Alan Silvestri. Excellent soundtrack. Alex Castellanos. I wanted to ask you a question about something that you talked about in last week's Cup of Jones that I thought was a little odd. You mentioned how you would love to see all the new logos and visual packages for all the Easy Content Show streams, but that you weren't sure that it was the right time to go for it or push for it because of thousands of dollars it would inevitably cost. I'm curious. $10,000 was quoted by Mr. Kyle Bossman at the meeting. Kyle's like, I want a $10,000 logo. We were all like, no. Why would you not maybe reach out to those in the EZA community who have already done some work for you in their free time? I know that there was at least one person, Joe Ellis, who had set up an entirely new mock website, which I've showed on the first community showcase. Oh, you bring it up here. With new logos and visual representations of all the EZA shows in the first community showcase. I'm not saying they shouldn't be compensated for their time and efforts, but I am positive that you couldn't get a better deal or more bang for your buck than through the community and by availing yourself of their talents. Maybe just put it out there and see what people can come up with on your behalf. Of course, we could, Alex, if we squeezed our community, I'm sure there's all sorts of free stuff that we could get out of that. There are issues with that. One, I don't want to ask people to do something for free. Two, it's not free because there's the management. There's our time that goes into observing what the work that they're doing, approving it, getting back to them. And three, I want to be much more organized. I want to have somebody whose one of their main job priorities is to manage this when we can finally get to that point where we can start incorporating our audience more, start working with our patrons and our wonderful community more on producing stuff, on producing graphics. We did a little bit of that out of the gate. The stars that we use for some of our streams were produced by a fan. The desktop wallpaper I'm looking at right now that was created almost like at launch, I think the first month of operation of Easy Allies, we grabbed and used for our desktop. You might have seen it behind the scenes in some of our shoots. So there is stuff that we've grabbed. There's merch that, there's merch sent to us, t-shirts that I wear that were sent by the community. But the moment you start saying, okay, we're gonna start hiring people from the community, I just don't wanna grab one person because then that will quadruple the requests that we'll get from people being like, oh, you're working with him? Okay, well you gotta see my work, you gotta hire me as an editor, you gotta start using our graphics. And we don't have somebody. We have people that manage our Twitch, that manage YouTube, that manage, Patreon.com, that manage, go to other forums and read comments that are left by people. It is a full-time job for one, if not more people. And this would be a full-time job, managing stuff like this. And you got to go through revisions too. So I know it seems like, hey, Joe Ellis did a lot of work, just tell him what you want and he'll do the thing. He'll do something, we'll have notes, he'll redo them, get it back to us, we'll have notes. And again, for free, that's it's a lot to ask. So yeah, there's a lot more things other than just paying somebody. It's the management of the work, the revisions, the time needed, and just the general management of that prospect of bringing community members to produce stuff for Easy Allies. But Alex, it's something I want to do. I'm so hungry to do it. It was brought up at the meeting. The interest from the allies was tepid. 6-minute whistle. 6-min whistle, but I'm going to throw the minute in there. I don't know, 6-minute whistle. That's a long whistle. I wonder if I could do it. I don't know if the news has spread to you yet, but some Chinese sellers have their hands on production tests or something of the Peter Pan Infinity character. Some that people have gotten have had defects, but they're dirt cheap, so probably worth ordering 1 or 2. Blah. Now, if any of you out there picked up Peter Pan, some people sent me I was actually kind of maybe insensitive to a couple people on Twitter because I sent them like a frowny face when they were like, look, I got Peter Pan. It's like, I wanted that figure. The reason this Chinese reseller's making them is because like the design is out there. Like somebody got their hands on it, they know the proportions of it, the size, and so they can create their own and paint it and sell it. It's bootleg. and it's not only bootleg, it's bootleg of a thing that never came out. And so that's it. It's like when I look at all of those figures, when I look at the Pixar shelf and I see Dory and Nemo from Finding Dory, that's it. Those are the last figures that they released. I know the end of that line. So if I show somebody like, this was something Disney produced, this is the end of the line, this is something that Disney produced, this is the first one, you know, Monsters Inc. character, like that's how far. Because it's really interesting actually looking at Nemo and looking at Sully from Monsters Inc. As like you know, Jack from Pirates, as like these first characters introduced, and just seeing even just in the paint quality and the design of the figures. But like, I don't want that to end with Peter Pan. I don't want people like, ooh, they made Peter, and just like, yeah, that's a weird other thing. That's like a thing that like they added on. That's not that. And a lot of people make really cool. Evolos and Gondokris are two names that pop to the top of my head of people that make fun. Their own creations, and those are great. I just would put that on another shelf somewhere. I wouldn't put that with the collection. And I know some people get Peter Pan, they're like, all right, I got him, and they put him up there. You didn't get him. They never made him. They never released it. And I just over the years, you know, worked with that team so much, and they all kind of snubbed their nose at a lot of the reselling that was going on of that stuff. And so I'm like, all right, I'll snub my nose at it too. Alexander Ziranov, whose idea was to start Game of the Year stream with "It's Now or Never," and I've got to make my decision. From the Persona 5 soundtrack. It was brilliant! Damiani. Always Damiani. If you hear that track beforehand. Might be somebody sneaking in, but if it's Vegas, I gotta put money on it. Michael Damiani. Morgan Mohala, how did that meeting go with the Allies? Great! We've been hearing about it for quite some time, and it sounded like some big issues and future planning was in the works. Yeah, and you'll hear about that over time. Number 2, I recall you said the suggestion box might get revisited. Any updates? Recently I was thinking it might be fun for the Allies to do once a year. A best suggestions show from the patrons as a way to have some fun with the community. Yeah, that did not come up. I think that's something we just need to schedule. That is something I want to do. No promises. But yeah, I put that, got that on takeaways. Suggestion box, stream, or poll on Patreon. Joey and Kate, if you can create any superhero, give us a brief summary of what his or her powers would be and what the backstory is. Yeah, I've definitely had some comic book ideas. I had a comic book idea about a guy. I'll tell you this one. I had a couple. Well, one's a funny one. Whenever I'm driving and I see a bad driver, I'm like, it'd be fun to just teleport into that car and just tell that person they're being a bad driver, and then teleport out and just terrify them. Just be like, what? Was someone just in my car telling me I'm a bad driver? What happened? And then they're gone. And then I never talk to that person ever again. And that person just goes through the rest of their life being like, what did I do that I upset some person with magical abilities so much that they had to teleport into my car? And so I was like, that'd be an interesting superhero. Just not only with cars, but just somebody who just sees, you know, not like, oh, that person's gonna rob a bank, or like, oh no, they got the nuclear codes. But like, that person's just being a jerk. And I'm gonna tell him. I'm gonna, you know, teleport into the bathroom stall with them and be like, stop being a jerk. Then you bamf out. But I had an idea one time, feel free to steal it, about, I was gonna call it Scarred. Scarred. But it should probably have a better title. But it's kind of like Spawn. It's a guy who dies and a demon gives him the chance to come back to Earth and puts like 100 scars on his body. Or he gets 100 scars. He's evolved this really bad auto accident. He's like a big truck and it just turns over and over and over and over and it like chops him up. And he brings him back, and it's kind of the thing where he's like really he's like Spawn, where he's really horrifying to look at. So he's got to like cover himself or like put masks on and not show people, you know, that he's just these horrible scars all over his body. But for every scar that's on his body is a person that he needs to kill, or a person that he needs to set straight. It's someone that has done a worse crime than him, and somebody that he needs to have penance for the bad stuff that he did by stopping them from doing the bad stuff that they're about to do. And he gets visions of where they are and where they live and what they've done and how to find them and what to do about them when he physically causes himself pain by hurting the scar, either like lighting it on fire or like putting his finger in it or jabbing it with a knife or something like that. So it's messed up. It's like it's Neil Gaiman, Todd McFarlane caliber style creepy comic book stuff. But that was a weird idea I had one time for a comic book story. Superhero, Scarred guy. Let's see what chat thinks about Scarred dude. I'm so scarred right now. Scarred. It's very emo. Joey and Kate. I'm done. Dragon Hunter, would you consider uploading to Spotify? Surely we have. I don't know why we wouldn't. I'll add that to takeaways. Spotify, question mark? Spotify? I think our current setup with people accessing audio is if it ain't broke, don't fix it, but Travis Johnson, big comment. I enjoyed hearing your thoughts on KOTOR and wanted to ask what your thoughts are of its sequel, KOTOR 2. While I respect what the first game did to successfully convey a compelling narrative in both the universe and game genre I love, KOTOR 2 has, despite being unfinished and deeply flawed, remained my favorite game ever made. I love how it uses a meta-narrative to contextualize the Force and its RPG mechanics, taking a step back to wonder the ethics of gaining strength by killing enemies and forcing your morals on your party members, as well as its overpowering and weighty sense of dread. It probably has my favorite writing of any game I've ever played. The opening is really great. And something about its unfinished nature has kept it at the forefront of my mind all these years, like it's haunted by something huge and sinister that's desperately trying to break through at every moment. Obviously, this is an uncommon opinion, so I'm curious how you felt about it, and if any of those strengths spoke to you too. I think of all of the EU material I've consumed, KOTOR 2 does the best job of making its stories, characters, and ideas feel like long-forgotten and ancient myths in the Star Wars canon, or X-canon nowadays. Despite my love, feel free to say whatever's on your mind. I'm used to being the only one in the room with a positive thing to say about this game. I got a positive thing. The opening is dynamite. I love that in KOTOR, you got so attached to these characters, and you got so attached to the ship, whose name is totally escaping me now, and then you begin KOTOR 2, and you're like, oh, it's the ship! And then you get aboard the ship, and everyone's gone. Everyone. They're all gone. You have no idea what happened to them. I love that. I love getting into a story and having to catch up to the characters that you were familiar with before. If there's a sense that you're going to get there, if some people just kind of like drop you off by the side of the road, that can be frustrating when you're like, are we going anywhere? Is this going back to something that's familiar? But I loved the opening. I loved, yeah, I don't want to spoil it. I mean, it's just there's a very specific like ship. There's an instance you gotta like get away from at the beginning of KOTOR 2, and I think they handled it very well. I hustled through KOTOR 2. I only played KOTOR 2 once. It's when we did our Star Wars retro back at Game Trailers. But played the whole thing and I enjoyed it. I thought the ending was very abrupt. You fight the last boss and it cuts to a cutscene and the ship flies away and you're like, ah! Credits. And you're like, oh, okay, we don't even, all right. We don't even get like a text scroll explaining what happened. We're just, we're done. But infamously, the team working on KOTOR 2 at BioWare had very, very little time. I think they had a year to pump that RPG out, maybe 2, which is a deadly amount of time, you know, to produce an RPG of that size. So, had to reproduce a lot of the stuff that they did from the first game. Didn't get a chance to be... Had some interesting ideas, but they didn't get a chance to really execute them. But I dug the cast, but specifically out of everything, the opening really stands out to me as being a fun continuation of what they built in KOTOR. Fabian Winkler, I just watched the binaural 3D audio explanation video of The Verge. One more time. I just watched the binaural 3D audio explanation video of The Verge. It would be very cool if you record the weekly podcast or reaction videos with such a binaural microphone setup. It might not be in the immediate budget, but maybe something to consider for a later date. It would feel like the listener is sitting right in between you guys. So something, yeah, to more of an immersive recording situation. Maybe if we get a better room for audio recording, we could test something like that. But Fabian, you bring up an excellent point because it, a lot of what we do is talk. A lot of what we do is just sit down and let you know how we think about things. And so, as we've said, we want to get new mics, and so having us sound better would make sense because listening to us is something we ask all of you to do a lot. Jose Rivera, as someone that has always struggled keeping up with the workout routine, what would you suggest to help people stay in track? Also, what types of changes have you noticed in your body during your fitness journey? Do you think taking pictures of the progress could lead to better motivation? Maybe. I'm fortunate because I do take pictures of the progress. I make videos, several days a week, and so it's funny that people have noticed my graying over time because I'm at the podcast looking in this direction as people are like, whoa, look, he's turning gray. It was nice shooting the podcast. Don't really notice it so much more, but when we had the couch, I would be turned to the side, and I'd be like, hey, look at that, like my arm's coming in. I've always not enjoyed buying new t-shirts because I really don't like when you get the big long edge on a t-shirt where a shirt pops out there and you get this big, when shirts do like this basically, I don't like that look. And so I like shirts that fit. And I was just always something that I was like, nah, I'm a skinny guy. I'm just never really going to fit into shirts. And so having my arms get bigger, it's been nice, you know, kind of like stuffing myself into, that didn't work. I should like that. I fit my clothes better, basically. I squeeze into stuff a little bit better. So I've appreciated that. It's tricky, Jose. The impetus to get up and go work out is something that I'm facing this now. Like I've you know, since starting Easy Allies, I had to take a long, hard look at my budget and look at everything and be like, you know, should for Amanda and myself, like what really should we be spending money on? And you know, as you know, I work out with Sean, and so it's like, is that nice? Is that worth it? You know, investing in that, or is it something that I should just get a gym membership and go to the gym instead? Because it would be a little bit cheaper. But at the same time, one of the big reasons that I go, one of the big reasons, there have been times where, you know, like this morning where I'm like, oh, I'm so sleepy and I worked so late last night and I got so much to do. It's like, maybe I just won't work out today. But then I'll think about Sean and be like, no, Sean's waiting for me. And so it's nice to have another person there. It's nice to have someone that you know is going to ask you after the fact, that's either going to meet you at the gym to work out with you, or is going to ask you after the fact, like, hey, did you go to the gym today? Like, if you have that one other outside influence, I find that always helps. But then again, it might not work at all. Like, you really have to find that thing inside yourself, inside your heart, that makes you get off your ass and go work out, which is tough. It's tough for me to do. If I didn't have Sean staying at the gym being like, come on, man, where are you? And I've definitely had that. I've definitely had him message me sometimes, be like, we working out today? And I'm like, oh yeah, sorry. Missed it. Ulf himself, have you seen the custom podcast scoreboards by Kevboard Arts on the forums? Yes, they're beautiful. Animated podcast scoreboards. It'd be amazing if you guys could collaborate and implement them into the podcast. It would be amazing. Again, it's one of those things, revisions and extra work and all that, but something to consider, Ulf. Glenn Fordham, I could be a mistake. You don't like the text that I do with the various colors? That's not doing it for you. Glenn, I could be mistaken, but I recall the context of the podcast ending clip was, no one ever says, I'm enjoying these microtransactions or something like that. No, Glenn, I did not say, no one ever says, I'm enjoying these microtransactions. I said, I am enjoying these microtransactions. I actually said, I went back and revisited the clip, I said, like, I'm enjoying these microtransactions. I said a like beforehand. Yeah, there are microtransactions I like. There are microtransactions you like. I guarantee it. At some point in your life, you have microtransacted something and enjoyed it. Kevin, but thank you for trying to make that sound better, but it doesn't. It's me saying I like them. On the subject of game sleuths and retrospectives, I think it's weird to have Patreon goals that do not have any sort of time frame or promise behind them. There definitely is a promise. We talked about that language, and admittedly, we do need to update our language on Patreon. That's something that we talked about last week. Every show you guys have is on a schedule except for those two, and it seems weird to me. It is. If you're asking for money to produce that content, then you should have a schedule for said content. I felt the same way about Cup of Jones before you went to the live format to make the show more manageable. Then maybe that's what we need to do. Game Sleuth and retrospectives are falling behind on Cup of Jones on getting to that point where we know what Damiani said at the meeting is that he's shooting to have a Game Sleuth episode done every 3 months. I think I will wait to see that happen before that's something something we communicate specifically to our audience. Retros, we're horrible at. Retros, I really thought I could have done last year, and all sorts of conflicts popped up, other projects that I wanted to work on. I found that if it is a 1 or 2 part episode of a retrospective, that's something that I can take a weekend and finish. There is a 1-part retrospective that I would like to do sometime in 2018 that I will be producing all by myself. I'll be writing it and capturing all the gameplay and cutting everything. And I know I can do it because it's just a big project and I can commit time to it and not tell anybody that I'm doing it, and then I'll tell everybody I'm doing it when it's done and you can watch it. But the idea of announcing something beforehand and then producing the retro is horrible. If we're going to be doing, we are going to be doing a retro in 2018. We did pick which retro that we want to do. We'll be announcing that more later. And specifically what it is, when it is, and by the time you get that information, the retro itself will already be done. I think right now we want the schedules for retros and Game Sleuth to be a little tighter than what they currently are. I think if we were to, what we probably should do, Glenn, and I'm sorry, Kevin, is be really honest. That it's like, you'll get at least 2 Game Sleuths a year and 1 retrospective. We'll promise that. We just don't know exactly when they're going to come out. Because it's the nature of these big features. It's like you're saying, you're like, it's weird that those are the only two. Those are our big features. Like, if you look at the way those are produced, they're more highly produced than anything that we do. And so you just hit this threshold of, once you're above that, there's so many things in this industry that could just completely derail that. Preview events, Hall of Greats, you know, group streams, reviewing something else, conferences, you know, there's just all sorts of stuff that just pops up, and we're like, oh yeah, we can't do that this week because we had that other shoot that we were working on. But I hear you, Kevin. It is a concern, and it's something that we will address. Xylo Wolfbane, thoughts on the live-action Sword in the Stone announcement? I don't usually care about Disney's recent live-action adaptations, but this time they're doing my favorite Disney film of all time. I'm worried. I'm not worried about Sword in the Stone. I'm actually excited about Sword in the Stone. Why, Jones? You said you didn't like Beauty and the Beast, and you didn't like this other stuff. Well, I don't know about the cast of Sword in the Stone yet. I actually haven't heard that. Sword in the Stone isn't like a straight-up musical. I know there's songs in Sword in the Stone, but there's not like a bunch. Like Aladdin, Lion King caliber, like 10 songs. I think there's like 2 in Sword in the Stone. I don't remember Sword in the Stone being a big scene, song. And so hopefully they don't do anything like weird with the score or hire somebody that can't sing to sing a song. But there's way more actors in that. I look for, if you're doing live action, I look forward to seeing actors. I don't want to see CG animals talking and stuff. It's just, that's when it gets weird. And there's not a lot of CG animals talking. I think there's some talking birds in Sword in the Stone, but I have hope. Out of all of them, I think that's one that would make an interesting adaptation. Those are definitely drawn more like people than most people in Disney films. So I'm curious to see, yeah, how that comes together. Tim Beshan, have you read the Song of Ice and Fire prequel book, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms? No. If so, what are your thoughts on that? If not, do it. It's great. I will check that out, Tim. I probably got time because book 6 is maybe going to come out, I don't know, never, ever. So it's probably time to go back to all that stuff. But there's more than that. There's a lot of small tales and stuff that Gurm has written in the Song of Ice and Fire world. And so, gotta binge. It's like all that extra stuff. It's like all the Marvel shows I haven't watched. It's like Punisher. I'll get to that someday. Cam Smith, I feel like I've almost certainly heard you commend Walt Disney World's Haunted Mansion in the past. Similarly, I thought it was impressive, but I'd be interested to hear specifically what you love about it if you've got the time this week. Always got the time to talk about. Always got the time to talk about Disneyland. Talk about Haunted Mansion. Always got the time. We dropping frames? Are we still in? Everything seems okay. Everything, yeah. The line is really great. The location is really fun. I like it being right next to the Hall of Presidents and kind of in like this Liberty Square. So you get this kind of old Americana vibe as you go into this old haunted house. I really like, there's a room in there that is not in Anaheim at all, which is like kind of an MC Escher upside down staircases, ghost footprints walking on walls. There's a really cool moment where there's wallpaper of a bunch of spooky looking eyes, but you turn the corner and there's a black shadowy corner where you actually see light up eyes staring at you from the darkness, and those eyes kind of slowly start to become the pattern of the wallpaper. I think that's a really interesting touch. When you're in the elevator at the beginning and the ghost is talking to you, his voice will travel around the room like he's a ghost. You'll hear like a whooshing, and you'll hear him bouncing to different areas where it's just it's just regular, good old surround sound in Anaheim. And it's just a longer ride. There's a couple parts that they added on that you walk through in Anaheim, but you go on the ride, like the busts that will watch you as you go by. Those are on the ride instead of being on the line in Anaheim. So I like those. There's just a couple little bits. I think I've talked about that ride before on Cup of Jones. Greg Kettering, this weekend a new type of video showed up on the main YouTube page. Checking out. Was where it was a Twitch stream Kyle did of a game condensed into 16 minutes. What Twitch streams do you envision getting this treatment? I think getting the group streams on the main page as the 15-minute 20 highlights would be great. Yeah, not going to start highlighting everything. This was specifically, like as I mentioned before, a test to think of how we can do hands-on impressions with games in fun, different ways. Not only ways that communicate that best to our audience, but ways that are most comfortable for the ally producing them. Some people would rather do scripted stuff, some people would rather try those streams out. That's why we want to make sure we have as many opportunities as possible and establish as many brands of different shows that have different formats so people can be like, I'm going to don't skip this, or I'm going to do a Checking Out episode. Checking Out is not a final name. We're testing out Checking Out. Kern Grisdale, 2 questions. Number 1, would EZA ever consider doing a Zelda timeline update? No. The GT Zelda timeline got me into the Zelda games, and I am now slowly working my way through all the main games in timeline order as best I can. I love that the timeline got you into Zelda. That is amazing. But no, we will not be doing an update. Not generally doing updates on anything we did at Game Trailers. Apologies, Kern. But number 2, I'm curious as to how you personally would rate the 4 main Arkham games. Which is your favorite, which is your least, and why? For me, the best to least good would be Asylum, Origins, City, and then Night. Origins better than City. Fascinating. This is mostly due to the strength of story, then gameplay. Night just overcomplicated the combat. I would go City, Asylum, Origins, Night. Yeah, Night is definitely not the best. It's a fascinating wrap-up to that stuff. I enjoyed the Batmobile stuff. And I know a lot of people say Asylum is better. I think City's better because I like flying around the city, just selfishly. But they're close, neck and neck, tying for first. And I really liked Origins. I thought the story in Origins was really great. There's a couple Joker moments that I really dig. Tarot Tartare. For merchandise, is it possible to expand the inventory of items? Always. From brainstorming some items you could add are beanies, tank tops. We've had some tank tops. Lanyards. Amanda wants us to make lanyards. And enamel pins. Yes, pins. Also, several Cup of Joneses ago, there was a mention of a logo change. Would the Allies consider having a mascot? Probably not. I would love to see a plushie of an EZA mascot, or if the merchandise items could have characters from Box Peak or Tabletop Escapades or even Reindeer Academy. We've talked about a Sophie plushie. We've talked about stuff like that. Yeah, I would say lanyards and tank tops were very popular merch suggestions. Ford, will you ever grow a beard? No. Probably not for Easy Allies. I'd have to be old. I'd have to be in my 50s probably. I'm almost in my 40s, so you got a ways to go to wait. Why not a pillow with an EZA logo on? There's a lot of things we could put the logo on. Bjorn R. Haroldsvik, and I know a lot of you just keep screaming merch suggestions at us week after week. We're trying to prioritize things as best we can. Bjorn R. Haroldsvik, can't wait for you to play the next episode of Telltale's Batman this Thursday night, 10 p.m. Pacific Time on twitch.tv/EasyAllies. Season 2, Episode 4. It's fun to watch because we almost never make the same choices. Anyways, what's the story DLC Harley Quinn... Oh, was the story DLC Harley Quinn's Revenge any good? Bjorn making a diversion, making a left turn going back to the Arkham series, which I believe Harley Quinn's Revenge was DLC 4. All of the DLC for all of the Arkham games was kind of disappointing. They were all interesting, but then you got into them and you're like, oh, this is kind of fun, and then done. So they were all like an hour. All of them. And that always got really frustrating. They would announce a new one. We're like, is this going to be longer than an hour? And like, they never were. So I would talk to Hubert, because Hubert always played those before me. And I'm like, is that good? And he's like, yeah, I'm glad I bought it, but it's short. Dominic Barlow, by the time you read this on stream, the Oscar nominations will have been announced. Do you find yourself comparing them to the Game Awards in any way, particularly in light of Joseph Ferris's comments, where he said, F the Oscars? Don't F the Oscars. Don't F any award show. They're all kind of dumb. Award shows are dumb. Like, there's something about award shows that's just gonna suck. It's gonna feel procedural. Like, there are some people that are like, you should have award shows be more fun so they're more watchable. And then you have other people like, no, award shows should be pure. They should be, you know, not personification, but a representation of what that year was. What the, I think one of my favorite moments of the Oscars is the In Memoriam. I love that moment to look back and reflect on how many people. It's fascinating to see like who gets applause and who doesn't. I feel bad for all these lighting designers. They're like, oh, we lost that guy who did costumes on all of these great movies. And you're like, who? Because it feels bad because they don't get a lot of the press as like famous writers and directors and actors and producers and the like. Love the Oscars. It's just like hard for that balance, to make a show that's entertaining but also make a show that demonstrates its industry. And so I don't think the Oscars needs to be hip like the Game Awards. I don't think the Game Awards needs to be better than the Oscars. I think it's fine. Yeah, I don't compare them to the Game Awards. They're two different things. Two different industries, and they always will be. Like, even if the games industry gets to a point where it's at the same prestige as Hollywood, Hollywood will have moved on to some other crazy place. Christian Thomas, first thing I wanted to mention that needs your attention ASAP is one of the latest Humble Bundle deals happening right now. Get this, it's 20 ebooks all about the world's national parks for a ludicrous $15. Though I'm not expecting a check from Humble anytime soon, I simply had to drop a mention since it seems right up your alley. It does. I will check that out. Secondly, I was curious if you've heard of an online service called Canny. I've seen a couple of game devs using it to keep track of player feedback, and it seems pretty neat in the way it seems to organize conversation within communities. Again, not expecting a check or anything, I just thought I'd drop a mention if it helps. And finally, I'll end with a riddle to tick the old noodle. Riddle me this, says Christian Thomas. Riddle me this, Batman. The person who buys me doesn't need me. The person who makes me doesn't want me. And the person who uses me can't appreciate me. What am I? See if chat can get that one. The person who buys me doesn't need me. The person who makes me doesn't want me. And the person who uses me can't appreciate me. What am I? Well, the first thing I can think of, it doesn't apply to the other ones, but somebody says the person who buys me doesn't need me. It's like, maybe it's buy the farm. Maybe it's like maybe these are all just like, you know, plays on words. Christian, I'll tell you this. I'm a little sleepy this morning. This is not a good morning for me to get into trivia. But I love Riddle Me This, man. I love a riddle. See if there's any good. Game console. It's always a clock. Time. Loot box. Loot boxes. More than one person says microtransactions. The person who buys me doesn't need me. Doesn't need the loot box. The person who makes me doesn't want me. Loot box. And the person who uses me can't appreciate me. What am I? Yeah, I wonder. Doug, finally, last question. I was wondering if there's any plans to have any of the allies specifically engage with the community on Reddit. The subreddit for EZA is a bit sparse with content, but I feel there's room to really grow it as a platform for community engagement. Kinda Funny took the impetus to start posting fairly regularly on their subreddit last year, and it's done wonders for the community. Greg, Tim, and Andy all post daily, and it's really fostered a healthy community outside of just the Twitch chat, which I understand can be tempting to put all the focus on. It's not just Twitch chat, it's Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and our forums. Those are our four main things, and YouTube, obviously. So those five. Those are our five main conversations that we are directly policing and observing and engaging in. There are many other places, Reset Era, Reddit. There are lots of other places that we could go to join that conversation as well. But we discussed at great length the difficulty in managing all of that stuff given our backgrounds, given our experience, given the stuff that we're good at, and given how much time we have to focus on those things, and really how much power we can expect from each other to manage these platforms which we do not direct control. Like we didn't create that subreddit, we don't have that thread, you know, to directly manage. If something technically goes wrong, there's not a lot we can do, and so it's a tricky question. It's not the answer you're looking for, Doug, because it's like it's not something I would expect soon. It is something that would have a benefit, but it is something that we discussed at the meeting. We have to understand the limits. And I know that you were talking about Greg, Tim, and Andy doing that, and that's 3 of them, and there's 9 of us. But it's still, you know, what they have time to do, what their focus is, how they can spend their resources, and what collectively the 9 of us all have to focus on to produce Easy Allies week to week, month to month. But I think that much like we were talking about, you know, bringing in, and I wish I could come to you being like, hey, good news, we're hiring a community manager. You know, good news, we're bringing in all these fun employees from our community. It's not something we're ready for yet. It's not something that, looking at everything we can invest in, it's something that makes sense to invest in now. But hopefully, if that puts a frown on your face, if you're bummed and you think that we could grow very fast and that would be nothing but beneficial for us, boop, then, you know, hit me up at Trailer Jones. Leave a comment here at Cup of Jones, because I come back every Tuesday morning at 10 p.m. 10 a.m. Sometimes the show's in 2 pieces. Sometimes it's in just one. I'm curious to, yeah, how those work out. How if you go to this post later on Patreon, I might have to put a link to like part 1 or something. So if you only got one part, if you just got this part, there was a first part. There was a part where I answered a couple pages of questions and then the lights went out and I lost internet for a little bit. But it was fun. We had a few laughs. I love you all so dearly. I don't really have a an editorial. I guess I can. There's one thing I wanted to talk about. Look what I got for my birthday. I don't want to put it like right next to the mic, but I got a little Batman drone. Check this out. And I wanted to like fly it around today, but I think I just gotta like pop this in. Yeah, see, little Batman drone. Turn on, engage. Oh, it's done. It's fun to fly a little Batman thing around. It's funny because it comes in the packaging like this, and then you add Like you have to add this thing so it can actually like land, and then you got to add like all the spinny wheels. So when you look at the packaging, it's like, whoa, the Batwing just flies around, and then when you actually set it up, it's like, no, it's kind of like a boat-looking Batwing thing. But it's very fun. Maybe I'll fly it around and land it on somebody's head on the group stream. But that was one of my favorite presents. But there's my editorial, just what I got for my birthday. Had a really fun night last night. Speaking of Batman, my friends that I do a tabletop, that do D&D and Vampire the Masquerade and stuff like that with, set up a little, we use Lego figures, and they set up a little Justice League campaign for me where I got to be Batman. And I got to beat up Penguin and Solomon Grundy and Cheetah and some other characters. It was very fun. So that's why I'm so tired. I was doing that very, very late last night. But it seems everything's okay. Seems our stream made it. So we get spinning wheels, propellers. Yeah. But thank you so much for tuning in. Apologies that we're in 2 pieces this week. Apologies that my energy level is not usually where it's at. But I gotta conserve. I gotta go buy some stuff, gotta shoot some things later today, and then be back with Nidhogg 2, I believe, tonight is our winner for the group stream, which you can check in 6 p.m. Pacific time on twitch.tv/EasyAllies. It's Tuesday night, it's group stream night, it's also Cup of Jones. Thank you all for engaging and writing all of these wonderful questions. And we will be back later in the week with more shows and stuff. I will be especially around Thursday night for my Batman stream. Tune in. Bruce versus Batman. But I'll be back next Tuesday as well. And what's really nice about being so close with the couch, I don't know if you can tell, but like the background is really far back there because I'm up really, the couch is in front of the desk. So the couch is up really close. But it means that I'm closer to the TV. I can really set up the end here. I really do a good job of sipping this and going straight out. Wishing you a wonderful Tuesday. I'll see you later today. Cheers.